Always enjoy getting information from you. This is the April meeting of the Waterfront and Parks Committee. Community Board 4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and or are at extraordinary circumstances. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom should leave their cameras on, but we don't have any members. Oh, yes, we do. Members that are here via Zoom, please leave your cameras on. This meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel, and a transcript is being recorded. And I am co-chair of the Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee, Martin DeCott, Katie, my co-chair, Katie Savage, who was not able to attend tonight. We have an agenda that is really 4 items, and two of the presenters are here. I hope the others show up. It's going to be that kind of a night. Paul.
So I see on the agenda we have, just to give a general update on the parks in the district, and also there'll be a discussion of vandalism in Hell's Kitchen Park. Well, why don't I start with the Hell's Kitchen Park concern? I know that there was a walkthrough several weeks ago. I was not able to be there, but I heard the outcome of the request from the community. So what I will let you know is the signage requests are in process. The signs that will say keep out planted beds with the official park signs. We'll be ordering about 4 or 5 of those, and also the signs that also say no pets. There's a request for more of those, so those will be in. I know that people who don't mean well, they just ignore signs anyway, but it is something for the community and also park enforcement to point to. So that's, we're going to make sure that those we're working on those. I also had an opportunity. I'm composing a communication to NYPD. I know that Hell's Kitchen Playground has, I don't want to say a truancy problem, but some of when the weather is mild, kids do hang out in the really should be in school. And I know they should be in school. And so I did have an informal conversation with Officers Gallagher and Reed. I guess they're in Midtown North. But they're in this vicinity. They also look at Matthews Palmer as well. So I spoke to them about the issue of older kids hanging out. Usually, very often, unfortunately, they're smoking. But that's also an issue in that location. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more attention now that I put that kind of on. Let's see. We're doing some rodent work orders. What slows those down, I have to get pictures because they want those to go to work orders. Rodents for rats.
Rodents.
Yes. So, and we,
for Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen has some hot spots. Hell's Kitchen is a hot spot. Chelsea is a hot spot. I know they hit Twit recently because we have the upcoming volunteer events. Second, McCaffrey, and I think did I say Matthews Palmer? There are about 5 or 6 locations that have problems, and so it's just time to do them again in sequence. So I have to get the pictures to attach to the work orders. That's just an internal. So as I was mentioning, volunteer projects. So this weekend is the weekend that the New York Junior League will be kicking off at DeWitt Clinton Park. More than likely, we're going to be feeling out the turnout because we know that it fluctuates. Historically, I've been told historically it fluctuates from probably start out by painting, and the other larger projects we're going to be doing will be erosion control in certain areas of the park that where there are slopes and there's erosion, invasive weed removal. Unfortunately, the invasives that I'm talking about are daylilies. There's an area that is just overrun. I've been trying to tame that area, but those invasives and some others all around the entire perimeter. And also the Junior League is going to be planting with our horticulture team. They'll be planting reading gardens at the entrances, staircases and entrances around the perimeter of the park. So that's very, very nice. And also,
What is that?
excuse me,
You said green gardens.
reading gardens. They, you know, the welcome,
Greeting?
reading. So
Oh, nice.
at the staircases, there'll be, you know, something to welcome you into the park. It's just a nice landscape. I guess that's our little trademark name. So they're really very, very nice.
I just walked by Hell's Kitchen Park, actually today and yesterday. And the perimeter of the park that the volunteers do is lovely.
Yes, no, it's beautiful. And you should check out Chelsea on 9th Avenue. It was volunteers that planted daffodils there over the last few years, and it's really very, very nice too. It changes that end of the park. It's really very, very nice. One of the benefits of working with the Junior League is that they make a capital contribution. I guess their definition of capital is different from our definition of capital, but it is something that is lasting. That's going to be going into the park. And there's no final decision just yet, so I'm not going to speak about any specifics, but they are considering it. And from the recommendations that have been made, it's a very nice, generous thing that we leave behind. So that's also very, very good. Let's see what's next. Oh, and one other very important thing, you may find this of special interest, Kat Lafferty, one of the gardeners at Hell's Kitchen and also in the community, will be helping to bring some community volunteers also to work on this project. That's one of the things that the Junior League also does, is they try to bridge to the community that they are coming to visit with to make it really a community effort. One of the benefits of in this particular instance would be that Kat and others are also volunteering they're migrating somewhat from Hell's Kitchen over to DeWitt. So this is a very good way to get them involved in taking care of all the other locations in the park. So we're very, very happy to have that contribution. And other than that, at Chelsea Park, we'll be doing some lawn reseeding as well with our Partnership for Parks and Volunteers. This is around the seal seating area, the seal spray showers right by the playground. So that's going to happen next week, which is like usual strategy there to keep it green. And that's my short update.
Is Penn South Playground?
So Penn South Playground, the scheduled start for our capital project is June 1st. Oh, by the way, the playground has reopened. I mean, even though it's now next to a construction site, but the good news about that is that demolition is proceeding apace. It's on schedule as it should be. And it hasn't been, you know, there was a little bit of a hiccup there when we had the rainy days and they kind of got slowed down with their setup, but they are moving the way that they're supposed to. So that looks like it's very much on schedule. And also on schedule. So the scaffolding over at Ramona Ponte is going up. It's been approved, so it's going up. And we are hoping for the end of the vacate order and the vacate order and reopening of the playground, hopefully next week. So it's very, very positive.
So the scaffolding won't be up by next week.
Well, they're working on it. I would say that it's 80% of the way up. I was there today. What's going to happen next is we reevaluated how they will set up the protective fencing around the play equipment. But the scaffolding, the replacement scaffolding is in fact going up. And it's nearly complete. But what has to happen next is the fencing that will go around the play equipment to make that area safe. And then the playground will open so you can access the swings and the spray shower in the city.
When do you think that's going to open?
I hope it will be next week.
Well, that's fabulous.
I hope it will be next week.
That's fabulous. As you know, there's been a lot of pressure on
I know.
y'all.
I know.
Cool.
So I had a conversation with Max about the tree planting program throughout the city. That I thought it might be nice to share with everybody else that's probably interested. I had written, remember, about 6th Avenue, you were on the letter. Right. I wrote to everybody, then I spoke to Max. to find out what was happening. So now I know what was happening, but maybe everybody would be interested in how the tree program is going to go.
Oh my gosh, you caught me actually a little bit sleeping on that because I haven't done my homework on that. Are you asking about the bid process and how we plant trees?
Right, throughout the city.
Well, it's very interesting. Somebody asked me that question recently, and I actually thought that you could actually request a tree through 311 on the website. You cannot do that anymore.
Right, that's not the way. I didn't mean to corner you. I just figured it was everybody knew. If you don't understand, don't answer it.
I will have to come back with a better answer to that.
So,
By the way,
I missed the central point, I'm sorry.
Okay, there is a plan, all right, this started with us having missing trees on Sixth Avenue in our neighborhood. One is missing because of the last snowstorm, and they're all in the same block, and I don't know what caused the demise of the other one, but it's gone. So we went from having 3 trees on a particular block to 1. So I wanted to know what the process was to get to 2 new trees and how we could do it. So that's what started the conversation. I wrote to Parks and all of that. So Max explained to me, and I haven't had a chance to look at the site, so I was looking also more, that there is a plan. I think it's maybe some of it, a 9-year cycle. They'll go from top to bottom around the city through all 5 boroughs. Replacing trees on a regular schedule. They'll start with the most deprived areas where there are no trees at all. And they will work their way and you will fall, in different neighborhoods will follow the different cycles for going on. Those trees that are missing, again, if I had done something wrong, I apologize for the way I remember it. If there's a tree that's missing in or by a car, that can be addressed much quicker, because there is something in Chelsea Green or right in front of Chelsea Green, that they can direct attention to. But the trees that are just randomly throughout in front of businesses and homes, they're gonna be treated. It's a very methodical plan, but there's no jump starting it. That's the way I understand it. Does that sound right?
It sounds very, very actually.
Yeah, but they have a point, they'll be traveling.
There's a schedule.
Yeah, there is a schedule. I just don't really know what it is.
Thank you for using the phrase methodical. I really appreciate that. What I will tell you is, forestry is very, very good. They do actually confer with the park managers and say, do you have spaces in your park that actually need some trees? And we're able to give them lists of empty tree beds. And so that's also a part of the process. But I think what I will do is I will study up and maybe we can invite forestry to talk about it officially at this meeting.
Yeah, so everybody knows, not just the people that are out there wanting.
I can say something very briefly on that. So yeah, it is a 9-year planting cycle. If you wanna, there is a map where you can see what neighborhoods are planning to be planted when. If you just Google, it's called the Neighborhood Tree Planting Program.
To me, it's just total confusion. I'm gonna look again, that's why I said I'm not really clear.
Yeah.
The Parks Department?
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
we're
we're with the stewardship team.
Okay.
It'll also have,
Send us that link or send it to,
Yeah, we can.
no, to us, so we have.
yeah, there's also more information on that same page about the process.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
The follow-up.
the 9-year cycle and what have you, yeah.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the vandalism? I thought I read in the letter that you sent that, and there was a photo, there was a teacher or a woman that was in the garden, is this the correct one, that was in the garden, she was lifting up the stones and said it's her right to, that they could play in it, and they could rip up whatever they want, and it was in the email, so am I making that up?
That I heard that was not my communication. I think that's something that was circulated.
Yeah, it's in our communication. My question is, they seem to have known her name. Has anybody reported that to anybody in her school? Because she said she's a teacher.
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. Would you like to report?
I would think that she would have been. I mean, she literally said, I could rip up this whole garden. I let my kids rip up the garden. It was in our Dropbox.
Well, look, let me just say.
And then they had a picture of her, and they had a picture of her identification. And so I'm just wondering, like, okay, did anybody do anything after that?
I'm not aware of any action that's been taken against her, and so I'm also going to follow up with that and find out. I don't think we know that, sometimes there'll be groups of kids that come in with the school, that they're at recess or whatever. And kids not really fully understanding the purpose of parks, may pick a thing here or there. And sometimes teachers are too permissive. But we also get people who come to parks who are sometimes they're emotionally disturbed. And which is what this sounds like, because I can't imagine someone going into a park and being so disrespectful of the property and the rules. So that's what that sounds like. So we'll follow up on her as well. I'll do some research.
Hello, I'm sorry, is it possible to get on?
Yeah, just hold on.
Hello?
Anything else from the room?
My name is Tom Kaler. I'm a gardener at the Hell's Kitchen Garden. I was asked to come tonight and address the situation that happened in Hell's Kitchen Park, and particularly to address the situation that gentleman just brought up. Is it possible to address you at this point in time?
Keep going, Tom.
You can hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay. My name is Tom Kaler. I'm a gardener at the at Hell's Kitchen Park. I've been doing it for quite a while now, and we did back in May have a rather a virulent vandalism happened in the park, particularly in the gardens. And we get two kinds of damage that happen in the gardens. We get people who kick or throw a ball into the gardens, and then they jump in, and their ball's more important than our flowers. So flowers get stepped on, things get kicked around in order for them to retrieve their equipment. Then we also get a situation where people actually willfully go into the gardens and destroy them. They pull up plants, they take out stone borders that have been set in. One of our gates that is there just as a privacy gate to say, hey, please don't come into the garden. The lock and the chain was torn off of that. So this happened in March, and we did report it to parks. Subsequently to that, I was in the garden cleaning up, and I'm sorry, the gentleman was just talking about the situation where a woman, I was working in the garden. She had her kids in the toddler area. The kids climbed over the fence, got into a bed. I barked at them and said, please get out of the garden. This is not part of the playground. She had a crease, I believe is what you would call it, and just said her kids can go anywhere they want in the park. They can do anything they want. They can play in the gardens. And then she herself climbed in the garden, stepped on a couple of tulips that were coming up, and just said, I can come in here and do anything that I want as well. So I also realized that she was parked in front of the garden. And I'm the one who took that picture and then reported it. Subsequently, we went to Midtown North to talk to our cops about potentially what they could do, since this situation was a little more over the top than what we're used to dealing with. We get damage in the park. If you garden in a public space, you get damage. We accept that. It's the willful damage that really is upsetting to us. And frankly, we have a great group of gardeners right now. It's hard to keep a great group of gardeners when their work gets destroyed. People throw up their hands and say, hey, what the heck? So on the 23rd of March, we met with Max Goodstein and with Jose Torres, and Detective Bell Anthony came over from Midtown North and met with us as well. And as we were discussing the situation, one of the things the detective said was, one of the difficulties you have in the park is that there's no signage in the park that says stay out of the gardens. This is not part of the playground, which means that we as...
Tom, can you hear me?
Yes.
Before you came on, Paul Evans just talked about the updating of signage for the Hell's Kitchen Park, which is going to be in place in the next couple of weeks.
We hope so. We asked for it at that meeting on the 23rd. And as I said, Detective Bill Anthony just said to us, if you guys don't have signage and people are climbing into the gardens, we as gardeners are put in the situation of having to say, hey, please don't climb in here. Now, that's what happened with this woman, is that she just said to me, there's no sign that tells me I can't get in here, so I can get in here. I can just garden in here. I can do anything that I want. And frankly, I was just standing there saying, well, I actually called Elke Fears and said, here, talk to Elke. She's the head of the conservancy, which takes care of this. And she was like, I don't care who you are. I don't care what's going on. There's no signage. I can do what I want. So Detective Bell Anthony put us in touch with Police Officer John Anger, who was the head of the auxiliary cops. He came over and met with us twice in the garden at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday and on a Friday. And Officer Anger said that he could assign his auxiliary cops to come by twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays to, just do a drop in and a walk through the park and just have their presence be seen and known. And he thought that that might be helpful. But he also said to us, if there's no signs that my auxiliary cops can point to and say, hey, please don't get in the gardens, it just puts them in the situation of telling people what to do without having any kind of backup to say, it's here. It is stated. So yes, we're waiting for the signs. The signs, I think, will really, help the situation. And like I said, we get this kind of damage. It happens from time to time. We know that it takes place. This particular situation with this woman who turned out to be a New York City public school teacher was rather extreme. And we did, make the report to Midtown North, though I was the one who interacted with her. It certainly is not a road that I want to go down. This is not somebody that I need to be dealing with or having in my life. So I can leave that, up to the cops. But I was just asked to come and report to you guys exactly what had happened in the park, and those were the two things was the damage, and then just having this person say, I can do whatever I want in here. So we await the signage. I think that would be extremely helpful for us to have as volunteer gardeners. We don't have any identification. I don't have a little cap that says I'm a volunteer gardener, So when people come in the gardens and I say, hey, please don't get in the gardens, I take care of this. They look at me and, I'm an old guy with gray hair and, to hell with you. I can do what I want. So that's kind of the situation. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you for two things. Thank you very much for this report. We appreciate it. And for suggesting to Paul Evans that you get a cap that says volunteer on it.
And thank you for what you do.
You're welcome. We take care of the gardens because we love to take care of the gardens. And our feeling as gardeners is when the park is well tended, whether people see it or not, whether they take it in consciously or not, when the parks are well tended, it's such an asset to the community. When the gardens go to hell and they're not taken care of, then whether people notice it consciously or not, it just degrades everybody's quality of life, in the neighborhood. So we do it.
I walked by your park yesterday and today, and before you came, I said that the perimeter of the park just looks lovely. I thank you for your work and thank you for your report.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be able to let you guys know what's going on. Like I said, if you have any questions, happy to answer them for you.
Could we get this teacher reported to the principal?
Oh, should be.
I frankly thought about going down that road. I did look it up online, and personally, I just went, this is not somebody I'm going to get involved with. I fight illegal hotels in our neighborhood as well, and I've had enough people threaten my life, so I don't really need to have a teacher after me too.
Well, I do think that they need ID with the T-shirt. No, I mean, I said seriously. I mean, people don't recognize what he's doing. He looks like a trespasser himself.
Right, well, what, I know that, I talked about this with Max after your meeting. So the volunteers are free to make up their own I'm a volunteer gardener type T-shirt. You do not have permission to use the parks logo, and you shouldn't try to represent yourself as a parks employee. But I don't think it's a bad idea that people recognize you as volunteers in the community whose definition of gardening in the park.
Oh, yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
Easy.
There for all.
Yeah.
all of our community.
Yeah, for anybody who volunteers to.
Yeah.
Do participatory budget item. To have a hat or a shirt for anybody who volunteers to do gardening in our district. Have the district number on it and, you know, why not?
And if we had
Yeah, how do we do that?
if we had an active council member, I would be able to tell you who to go to.
I'll look it up.
Which we don't have right now.
Okay, well, we'll get one and
but-
hopefully we know.
The list is- Yeah, well, that person will be elected in April, and
Right.
I think we should be.
Yeah.
We should try to remember to call that out when
Or
that
even
person comes online.
Conservancy.
It's like, there are a number of.
It's such a small
Yeah,
budget
it's like-
item.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Would you rather have a hat or a t-shirt?
Hats are better because we can put them into the shed and then pick them up when we're there.
We're working, we're on it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I will make a report back to my gardeners.
I have a Bronx River hat with the Bronx River logo on it, so I know that would be a violation for this idea, but the strap in the back says volunteer, and you know, we're all volunteers. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Paul. Any other questions for Paul? We have a nice
Oh, Marty, sorry, there's a hand up in the attendees, Kelvin. I'm gonna bring him over.
yeah, please do. I thought we were finished with this.
Well, I think Kelvin is on to just give you an update about. This is Kelvin, I think it's from Ramona Ponte.
Oh, right.
Is that what, is that?
That's who it is, probably.
Yeah, I thought that he was.
Hello.
Yes.
Kelvin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm bringing the update report regarding to the Raymond Ponte Park on the investigation report that has been issued by Thornton Tomasetti. I think I emailed it over. I received a letter from the Community Board 4 today asking for the report, but the report has been sent. I think it's by March 19 for the investigation report. I don't know if you guys have received that, or I just resend it over again today.
I didn't see it, but Matt did.
Yeah, it's in the Dropbox. For this meeting. It basically shows that the contractor used the wrong material. If I read it correctly. Not the wrong material, but the wrong beams in the wrong place.
Correct. So first is we went through with Thornton. So on the plan, the plan wasn't self-certified plan. It was a standard plan exam submitted through the Department of Building and have been reviewed by the plan examiner. Then secondly, this contractor, which they pull the permit out as a general contractor, which they have their own permit number. I also submit their permits on there. On the permit is indicated they were AAH installation. They were installed as per plan and provide 300-pound PSI, which is per square foot. So per square foot of sidewalk shed need to carry 300 pounds of weight. So in regard of our, we had a snowstorm back to February and January. The maximum of the snow accumulation per square foot is not going to be more than 25 PSI. So 25 out of 300, it won't make, a shed collapse. Secondly, we did not have anyone work or store any of the material on the shed. Third is the scaffold was remain at the site. So it shows the structure stability. And I also send in a report from our engineer respond to the Department of Building on the structure stability report shows that the building structure are fine. The collapse of the shed is due to by contractor, which they on the drawing is indicated if they have the expansion more than 20 feet, they need to consult with their own engineer. And until today, that following engineer never respond or came to the site. He's playing even from the Department of Buildings request, they have to come to the site as collapse happen, they denies it. So we also look into the drawing is indicating it need to be at least W10 by 39 in order to holding a 35 feet span. That they only doing WA by 12. So and throughout the last meeting, the one of the board member asking is how we can prevent this to be happen again. And I thought deeply on this. That's become I couldn't sleep. This is like a nightmare to my life because I could be taking or gone right now. So I think is like how we build the building. We have the TR1 inspection. For example, concrete. You cannot just buy wherever concrete or hire any company to pour at the site. It has a third-party investigation besides the building department. That DOB already have that system, but I think especially with the park or children's park, the DOB should enforce that, have a third-party engineer and into flag if there's anything goes wrong. For example, the ownership, like us, we're a non-engineer, we cannot determine, what they did is correct or wrong. And we mostly rely on the building department's inspection. So if there has a TR1 in place with the following plans, which means have another engineer to audit the plan and audit the job to be responsible. I think that will be help and could raise an early red flag if the contractor built it wrong.
Calvin, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did the DOB come after it's constructed? Does the DOB come and compare the plans to their approved plans to the construction?
The DOB comes.
The DOB
Yeah, after DOB come, they didn't issue us any report or tell us, but they did issue one violation to AAH, says the installation is not complying with the drawing.
When did that happen? Before, after it was constructed and before this whole thing fell?
After it get collapsed, let me put up the DOB now.
So there isn't any inspection post installation?
Well, yes. So when the shed has been erect and re-erect by the permit was approved by June 5th last year. And the shed company, which AAH, they came to the site on June 12th. They did repair and redo the shed supposed to be by the drawing. And after they complete the work, we called up the building department to do the inspection in order for us able to resume to the work. And 2 days before shed collapse, the Department of Building was also there. to inspect the job site. So we work with the building department very closely inside of the building, concrete and structure. But
Kelvin, it was 2 days before. When they came 2 days before, did they say that this is not constructed properly, or they said it's fine?
no, they inspect the building. They didn't check on the shed.
Oh.
Yeah, they doing the site safety, inspection and stuff. But the shed was last year that has been inspected before, we're able to go back to the job.
Did Thornton Tomasetti do any inspections as part of services during construction in the contract?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it clearly.
Did Thornton Tomasetti do any inspections on site as part of services during construction from their contract?
No, they Thornton Tomasetti was came the day after the collapse, 2 days after the collapse, to investigate what's going on and what happened to
What happened?
the collapse.
Who was the original structural designer?
It's called MJE engineering.
Did they do any inspections as construction was going on? Usually there's a construction, the services during construction part of a contract with an engineer. Are they remiss in not having followed through themselves?
Apparently not.
But going forward, that kind of work will happen.
Who's in charge?
By going forward, so right now we went through with the Department of Building, the principal of the head of safety engineer. So he reviews the plan, and we just follow by his review, and now the plan has been approved. Yesterday the sidewalk shed has been up, and today the shed is already 100% complete on the park side, and the scaffold is already erect. By end of the today, I think it's 90% erect. And
after it's erected, there will
Monday,
be an-
I'm sorry.
after it's erected, there will be an inspection.
Yeah, so after but not only the scaffolding has been installed, DOB is asking for us to do the mechanical enclosure. So we will take about 2 days to finish by the mechanical enclosure on the scaffold. So it will be finished by Monday.
Fabulous. Fabulous, thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Yeah.
Kelvin, I also want to thank you for coming to each of these meetings over the last number of months. This is an unfortunate event, and we're very happy that you're on top of it and keeping us informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin. Anything else? We're going to move on to the next agenda piece. That's you ladies.
Stewardship, ladies.
It's lovely to meet you. We're with the New York City Parks Stewardship team. My name's Mallory.
I'm Natalie. Nice to meet you. Okay, so yeah, we're from the New York City Parks Stewardship team. Basically, our main focus is volunteer events. So we do events with the public. We also do events with private groups, people who like request an event with us through our website. We do events all year long, even in the winter. Like we did street tree care even in the winter, even though it was like the ground was a little frozen, but we still made it work. We have like 4 main categories of events that we do. So we do street tree care, of course. We also do forest restoration events. So that involves vegetation management. So sometimes we remove what we call introduced species or sometimes invasive species in the parks that compete with our natural, our native species for resources or cause harm or what have you. We also do wetlands events sometimes. So recently we've done a lot of beach grass plantings, which are really good for like holding the sand in place. I know you mentioned earlier erosion control in parks. So beach grass also does that for like sandy areas. The roots of the plants help to hold the sand in place so it doesn't erode. We also do trails events as well. We've done like trail marker installations. We've done a few of those events in Staten Island as well at Wolf's Pond.
As
Park.
well as in Inwood.
Oh, that's right, yes, Inwood as well. Yeah, so those are our main categories of events. We also have something that we call the Super Stewards Program. So this is for especially dedicated volunteers if they want to do work on their own schedule outside of our own scheduled events. Basically, they can do any one of those 4 categories of work: street tree care, forest restoration, wetlands, or trails. We do have those 4 tracks available in our Super Stewards program, and also people are welcome to do more than one at the same time if they're interested in that. We do have one of our flyers that we brought with us that explains the process of becoming a Super Steward a little bit. So the first thing that we would ask people to do is to join one of our regular events, just to get a sense of like what the work is like in general. And then after that, we have trainings, which you can find on our website, that sort of give you more in-depth information that you need to do whatever type of like natural areas care that you're interested in.
Is there an age limit? Sorry.
Oh, so for our, yes, absolutely. We really only have a minimum age limit for, so our forest restoration track, our wetlands track, and our trails track, those involve getting special permits to work within the parks. We have to coordinate with the park managers in order to get those permits. So for those tracks, we would need a volunteer to be at least 18 years old. But street tree care, anyone of any age can do that because that doesn't require like any special permit. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Also, I'll mention the private events we host. We work with a lot of schools to do our events. Companies a lot of times will organize with us to do volunteer events.
I actually want to organize something for community board, like I'll just to pick a block, and we can pick this block if we want to do like a street care event. And I've done one as a Girl Scout troop leader with you guys and had so much fun with it. I mean, the girls love just like pulling out the weeds and the trash, yeah, it's really just such an amazing program that we have just to take care of our trees. I mean, our street trees are like orphans in the forest, they don't have their understory to like communicate with other trees. So we got to take care of that, so it's such a wonderful program. It's so like, there's so many resources and there's always something going on. So if you're like, I've got a free Saturday and 9 to 11 and I'm gonna go hang out in nature, and it's like such a great way to kind of engage. Yeah.
You should do like adopt a tree pit,
They have that.
But I'm noticing a lot where there are empty buildings or empty retail storefronts and they have something in front of them, a plant that it's just dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a great event to take some blocks and plant those and get people to take care of those.
Absolutely, yeah.
It really is like a blight. There's so many empty stores and those people are responsible for that area and they're not doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of when we do our street tree care events, we'll put mulch in those beds a lot of times. Some of the beds that we work in have plants in them as well, as the tree itself. But I would say a majority of the street trees, it's just the tree in there, but having the mulch we talk about signs of stewardship. It's a great way to let folks know that someone's looking after that tree, which deters a lot of misuse of street trees.
But these are just totally empty, like there's no tree in it.
Oh,
It's
not a
just-
tree at all.
It's just dirt and usually there's litter in it and paper and, it becomes a trash bin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it becomes some mulch on those.
Yeah, we've definitely had, yeah, definitely.
You said you want to organize something for community board 4.
Yeah.
Have you flushed that out in your mind at all?
Not yet. Well, I just was thinking like we can pick like a street and initially I was thinking like 30th Street where we work, because it's nice to do it in the springtime because when it's cold, it's a little bit trickier. So yeah, I was just waiting for the springtime and then figuring out with Leslie, like when she could bring the trucks, because they bring everything. Everything they bring gloves and, you know, like shovels and, you know, so it's just, it's easy for a group to just plug in. You just show up and they teach you what to do and it's.
How long does a block take to treat? That's why I know, let's say there's 6 trees on a block, how long
Yeah.
does that take?
It depends on the number of volunteers you have in the group. The more people you have, the less time it takes. We did a block of, I think it was 34 total trees this past weekend. And we had, I believe it was 14 volunteers, and that took roughly about 2 hours. The average is about 30 minutes per tree.
Yeah, you were supposed to see tomorrow night. You were
Lisa,
supposed to
you-
see, go to, Heroes.
Lisa,
Lisa, we can hear you.
there's something we should say.
She was newly diagnosed with Graves' disease. She's still feeling horrible. So,
Can't mute her.
I don't think that's not gonna work for tomorrow night. So we'll all go to dinner.
Lisa,
Mute yourself.
Lisa,
Dinner at 5. I'll let you know when we're gonna pick you up.
She's muted us.
where's the dinner? I think so.
Yeah, I think she muted us. Wait, she got it.
She just did.
She just muted, yeah.
So about
I
15,
don't know if dinner was.
Yes, 15 minutes per tree.
with one volunteer on a tree?
That's typically for a couple volunteers per tree.
Yeah, sometimes if we have like really big events, we'll do like a group of 4 usually per tree. That's like usually the
Do you
maximum.
do your events in conjunction with other events that tag along with it?
We have done that, like,
Yeah.
Mulch Fest happens in, January, and so we would do street tree care events at the Mulch Fest
Christmas
sites.
trees, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm thinking of the community board, helping you flush it out in your mind.
Well,
We should do, a street tree repair somewhere where that should be identified,
Yeah,
then some sort of social.
yeah.
I'm
Or
thinking
that
about-
can be the social, you know, or like informally, we could just hit a bar right afterwards and, you know.
I'm thinking about block associations sponsoring.
That's
We
right.
run
With a
by
lot of block
association, we did, you know, under CCBA umbrella, we can have, we can have block associations on a rolling basis, volunteer if you want to do it. Like I know we have 44 trees on our block.
Wow.
And all the trees.
No, it's 44.
Precise number.
It's a lot, you know, so we have 44.
Oh, and it's easy.
But in any event, so I could see a rollout program and that would be doing well with CCDA, which has a total of 16 block associations. Every block association is not one block. A block association may be 4 blocks or 3 blocks or 2 blocks. But that could be a block association event. Each block associations get their own volunteers and have a day that's going to be a stewardship day. Because we do pay, or many of the block associations do pay to have the trees fertilized in a private. We do that. It's expensive though, you know, and we can only do, our block association can only do it once a year. Others do it 2 or 3 times.
Right.
But this is from what I'm gathering, when we do this stewardship, then we can, we get the materials, right? And we don't have to pay for anything.
Yeah, no, it's totally free.
We just need the bodies to go out and do it.
Yes.
So I see this as a great thing to bring before CCBA, do you agree?
Yes,
Okay,
100%.
so we can talk about this outside of this meeting, but I will raise it and maybe you'll come and speak to the CCBA.
Yeah,
That would be all of these things.
absolutely. I can leave my email as well, for me communications.
How else do you guys get the word out about volunteering for parks, in terms of,
Yeah, so in addition to like posting events on our website, of course, we also do like outreach when we print out flyers and we take them to like community board meetings, for example, or like local businesses. Yeah, we just go out to like any like or libraries as well, just like anything in the neighborhood where we're planning on having an event. Yeah, usually like a month or so in advance, and that's also a great way to spread the word as well.
yeah, okay. I mean, I think schools too. I have a couple of kids in our schools who are super stewards. And it's just a great way to like plug into the environmental communities in the high school, I'm talking high schools, where the students have this opportunity to give back to their communities. So I don't know if there's a way to just do outreach through DOE.
Oh, we have gone like to schools and given them flyers in person. Yeah, we do events like with school groups all the time. I actually did an event last month with a high school in the South Bronx as part of their like some of the students are in like an environmental club. And yeah, we like took care of the trees that were like in front of the school, which was really nice.
We're gonna have,
Once you do it.
we have screens in our elevators, there are 8 elevators.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I put this
And
up.
yeah, once you do the one event, like that's the first step to becoming a
Super Steward Program. So these are flyers for events coming up, that I'll talk
They'll
about.
just pull the picture up, they'll do their own thing, but they'll put it up on the screens for you guys, so
Okay, perfect.
people
Can
see.
you grab the folder real quick? I'll talk about these here really quickly. We brought some flyers with us for some events. I believe that's, yes, one of the City Nature Challenge events that are coming up. So City Nature Challenge is a international organization of cities that kind of compete to collect photos or you can record sounds in the case of birds of just the biodiversity of cities across the world. That research, the collected evidence, goes to a research facility in California to kind of keep track of the environments that are, since urban
events.
ecosystems are very different from your, rural ecosystems. So New York City has competed in the City Nature Challenge for many years. It involves folks just going out into their parks and taking pictures of the nature around them. With the exception of what they call the 3 Ps, which is people, pets, and potted plants. So it has to be wild in order to qualify for the City Nature Challenge.
That's 4 people.
Yes, well,
Just
I brought that up when they said 3 Ps, it's 3 categories of, yeah. So we have some of the events there, which is a coordinated effort on the part of parks to get folks out on different walks so that they can take photos of nature. Parks helps point out some things that might be of interest. We just did one last week internally, and we have someone on the team who's very interested in fungi. So we got to see all of the lichen and mushrooms that I had never thought to notice while I was hiking. It's a lot of fun. So these are some of the City Nature Challenges coming up. We have 2 in Inwood, which I know isn't in CB4, but there has to be forested areas a lot of times to get as much as possible. But you can, in these neighborhoods, take photos of naturally occurring. A lot of times birds will count.
insects.
Yes, insects count as well. You'll see mushrooms naturally occurring. But yeah, so these are some events going on. There's also going to be what's called a Bio Blitz in Central Park coming up, which is part of a designated week within City Nature Challenge, where folks are really challenged to go out and collect as much evidence of biodiversity in their cities as possible. So we'll share these flyers out as well. On top of,
Getting back to the street tree stewardship, what's the best season and time of year to do those events?
so we advise folks to participate in street tree care whenever they can. The street trees are in a kind of challenging environment for a tree. So as much care as we can provide those trees, it is better than the care that they're getting, or already getting.
What I'm asking about, if we can get the block associations rolling with events. And hopefully encourage people to keep it up. But would be, best time would be to start in the spring, the fall, the summer. I mean, we're getting into spring and summer now, we only have a couple of meetings left, but we wanted to introduce this as an ongoing event. When should it start?
So there's a couple factors that you can take into consideration. When it comes to doing the street tree care events, for the stewardship team, the biggest limiting factor is, how many staff we can have to support those events and, the logistics surrounding the trucks, with the trucks full of mulch. So a lot of times we'll have multiple events going on per weekend. So, it might be the case where you reach out and say, we'd love to do a June 13th, for example, is one of the, or June 16th is one of the events that I'm running. We already have 2 events running that weekend. So we wouldn't be able to support that event because the trucks are already designated to go to different areas. So my recommendation would be we can coordinate in terms of timing and what's best. And it also depends on the kinds of stuff that you would want to do during your street tree care event. We had an event last fall where folks were planting bulbs in the tree in addition to traditional street tree care. In that situation, fall would be best because bulbs are better planted in the fall.
I don't want to take we'll take this up separately. I just wanted to have an idea to frame it and bring it to the organization. So we would have time, I mean, we could start talking about fall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, and probably having this guests.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, when it comes to street tree care, I think the season is not as much a factor as it is with like vegetation removal, for example, is big in the summer, because that's when those plants really get going. But street tree care event, the season doesn't really impact the scheduling as much.
Yeah, whenever like the volunteers are actually available is really one of the best times. And if you give them about 2 months, I think 2 or 3 months. Weekends obviously you need probably even more lead time in terms of scheduling the truck and the volunteers to help. But yeah, it's really more about when are your volunteers able to do it? It's really.
I don't want to take up what I'm not only thinking, I'm thinking of, so I'm thinking ahead with this, I mean, getting people on block associations.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
And
but,
making
you know,
it an annual.
Yeah, that might all be possible. What I'm thinking, if we really want to get an army of volunteers, is to partner with a local school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we have PS33, you know, I mean, we'll coordinate, we don't, but there's way to get those volunteers outside of the people that live on the block.
Absolutely.
In my walk around in the last couple of days, I noticed a tree pit with tulips starting to come out.
No.
Kind of cool,
Very exciting.
kind of cool. Anything else? Anybody online? Thank you.
Anybody from the public?
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Coming.
We can leave these flyers here with you all, if you like them. But
Yeah,
so
leaving those good.
our event flyers, and then this one is just like explains the Super Steward Program a little bit. So yeah, you can just leave those.
So I will move the agenda.
Yes.
That's okay with everybody. And next up is
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
my favorite trash walker, although I don't think we've met. Anna, go. You're on.
Great. Can you all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect. I'm gonna share by let me just see it, make sure I can do that. Okay, sorry, I have to open my system settings and let Zoom access Google. Thank you all for having me. Sorry about this. Okay, I'm going to try to speak while I pull it up. I'll do multiple things. So basically, my name is Anna Sachs. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I've been going through the trash for almost a decade now. Let me pull up the presentation.
People always raise their eyebrow at me when I tell them that I have studied garbage. You kidding? Studying garbage? You out of your mind? Actually, a fascinating subject.
It's a journal called Garbage.
You know what, Janine, are you able to pull it up? It's not letting me. Oh wait, hold on here. Let me just try. That works?
Yep, you got it.
Great, okay. There we go. So basically, I've been going through New York City's trash for almost a decade, and it's led me to the conclusion that New York City is not doing enough to prevent waste from going to landfills and incinerators, and specifically waste that is very usable. And so there needs to be some form of government intervention. And I propose that New York City needs to create a dedicated Office of Circularity. And this Office of Circularity can live within the Department of Sanitation, it could live within the mayor's office, but there needs to be an entity devoted entirely to reuse and waste prevention. So just a little bit about me. I've been involved with Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board. I was formerly the legislative chair. I co-founded the Save Our Compost Coalition, which was formed in 2020 during the COVID budget cuts. And we've been successfully fighting for funding for composting and community composting, and also for expanded access to composting through legislation, through passing the bill that now requires New Yorkers to compost. So that the brown bins you might be familiar with. And then I have a large social media presence where I share these type of things, share issues about waste, share my videos going through the trash with an audience. So just to provide context, when we say we throw something away, where is away? We discard a lot on a daily basis. What the Department of Sanitation is responsible for is residential waste and some public school waste, and some also like government building waste. So that's 24 million pounds. And then you have around 20 million pounds from businesses and maybe 33 million pounds from the construction and demolition industry. So you could kind of think about it as like a third residential, a third businesses, a third construction and demolition. These numbers are very rough because it's not metered, right? With electricity, with water, you know exactly how much you're generating. With waste, it's a lot more murky. And it's, unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of the data. A lot of the data is estimates, but it's a huge amount that's generated on a daily basis from New York City. And then we have also the financial aspects of it, where we're spending almost $500 million, around nearly $500 million on burning and burying our trash. So those are waste disposal costs. It's not Department of Sanitation labor. It's the amount of money that we're paying to send our trash to landfills and incinerators. So it is a hidden cost, right? It's not something that you get on your own personal bill. And say you're responsible for paying X amount of dollars for your trash removal per month. It's something we collectively pay, and we kind of collectively forget about because it's hidden within our tax dollars. But it's a massive amount of money. We're spending almost $500 million just putting things into landfills and incinerators. So we dump stuff onto the curb. They're picked up by the Department of Sanitation. They're brought to what's called a waste transfer station. And then from there, they're loaded by either, they're loaded onto trains or onto barges, and then they go to landfills and incinerators. So this is from Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board. It shows where our waste goes, and you could see it goes all the way upstate and all the way south, as far south as South Carolina. So it travels a large distance to get to its final destination. And then we have environmental and social harms of landfills. Most notably with landfills, they're a huge source of methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. In its first 2 decades, which is a short-lived greenhouse gas, it is 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. And then you also have other issues with landfills. It can contaminate drinking water, it can contaminate soil. And then you have the health harms, specifically for those who live near the landfills. Different things, coughing, nausea, difficulty breathing, irritation. And then in incinerators also, they do harm as well, both environmental harm and social harm. So 79% of all municipal solid waste incinerators in the US are located in what's called environmental justice communities. So they have disproportionate impacts, disproportionate negative impacts from incinerators, from heavy industry, and they're mostly located in low income and people and like Black and brown communities. And then they emit harmful pollutants, heavy metals, lead, mercury. You could kind of think about it as like you have toxins going in and you have toxins coming out through the smoke. And then globally, there are significant associations with tumors, birth anomalies, infant death, and miscarriages. So where we send our waste for most of Manhattan's for all of Manhattan's west side, it goes to, they renamed it, it's called New World now, but it's Covanta incinerator in Newark, New Jersey. And it's 75% people of color, 64% low income. And it's a environmental justice community. So our options for landfills and incinerators are bad, and yet we continue to rely on them. So after 8 years of going through New York City's trash, I've noticed systemic patterns of unnecessary waste. And then to reduce this weight and divert this weight, I think New York City should create a dedicated office of circularity. It would recirculate usable items to New Yorkers in need, create local green jobs, and build community, offering a model that the rest of the world could follow. So we're going to break it down into different buckets of waste, starting with school waste. There are 1,600 public schools serving almost 1 million public school students in New York City. And I don't know if you've noticed this, or if your kid goes to school, you probably know this, but the majority of them eat from single-use items at lunch or breakfast or after-school programs. So that's potentially 3 million single-use items per day if you're using like a cup, a fork, and a plate. So there's a huge amount of waste generated, and then a huge opportunity to switch to reusables. And this is something that to my knowledge, no one in the city is focusing on. So first, you need to have a study of how can you switch to reusables, and then you need to do pilots, and then roll it out to different schools, maybe starting with one district, and so on. But that's a huge opportunity to reduce waste. And then work collaboratively with schools for the end of the school year waste, which is also unfortunately a lot of waste, a lot of usable items. Build little free libraries at each school to recirculate books from the library weeding process, where you take out books from the library that are not being used. And then have textile collection, because schools actually toss a lot of textiles, and then help with unwanted school furniture. So again, these are things that are like very usable, and switching from these linear systems to circular systems. This is from the Upper West Side several years ago, where I went through public schools trash that was supposedly zero waste and found all these usable items. Let me see if I can play this one. This was another public schools trash. Okay, I don't see if I can, let me unmute it. Calculators over here, TI 83. Okay, well, it's not turning on, but it could be a battery issue. This one is turning on. I think the other ones maybe need batteries replaced. I'll just take them all. These Lab Pro things, and then this is a nutrition check, pH. Another one of these. I know. Fast forward it a little bit because it's markers. Oh, pastels, yeah. Crayons. More watercolor pad not used. Sketch paper. Was someone cleaning out their locker maybe. Safety compass. Artist pastels not open. Unopened index cards, headphones, more washable markers. Another one, watercolors, slightly used. Pencils, another watercolor, more. I'm going to pause it there because you get the picture, but that was a public school on the Upper West Side. Yeah, huge amount of waste at the end of the school year system. There needs to be better systems there also to reduce the waste. This is from the library weeding process. And I will say, I've spoken to DOE about this and gotten a response that these books are considered to be DOE property, and so they can toss them, but they're not allowed to give them to students. And then I tried setting up a meeting with actually former Councilmember Botcher and DOE employees, and then the DOE employees canceled the meeting like the day before. So it's a huge problem that totally solvable, and like little free libraries within the school confines could help solve it. School furniture waste. And so basically you need someone to be focusing entirely on these systems and how do you create reuse, waste reduction and reuse into them, because otherwise it falls through the cracks. For corporate waste, there's a lot of ideas here. I think corporate waste is more difficult for the city to manage, but one could be increasing the number of water bottle fountains at stadiums, theaters, and museums. So you can update the building code. So just like you require a certain number of bathrooms for the occupancy, you could require that you need a certain number of water bottle fountains for that occupancy. This is one of the ideas also for refrigeration outages. When there's a refrigeration outage at, this was a Dwayne Reed, or at a grocery store, everything that's in that section goes into the trash. And so you could create emergency response protocol to prevent this from happening. So there was probably like 10 trash bags filled with these frozen meals. And then also help with stores that are closing. This was a Dwayne Reed that was closing on the Upper West Side. And when they closed, all of this went into the trash. This was probably like 15 trash bags worth of usable items. And then this is from CBS. One thing that you could do is require that corporations donate these hygiene items. So instead of tossing them when there is like returned or lightly damaged, that you have to donate them to shelters or nonprofits. For residential waste, there are a lot of ideas also. One thing is that you could pilot a monthly furniture collection day. So instead, right now, you put furniture on the curb with your trash, and maybe you hope that someone takes it. Instead, you could say that the last Sunday of a month is going to be the furniture collection day, and you put it out and everyone like walks around. You could take whatever you want, and then you could have nonprofit partners with trucks come along and pick up what's left, and then you could have the Department of Sanitation pick it up. So it'd be a little bit of a change in protocol, but not much, and it could help recirculate these different items. So just an example of the type of furniture we're talking about, and a lot of times this just goes into the trash. Government waste, one idea is to identify potential sources of government waste in advance and develop reuse programs beforehand. And these things that are in bold are just things that I have with photos to illustrate them. And then I also think that we need more of what's like similar to Materials for the Arts, which is in Queens, which are these creative reuse centers. So every borough in the city should have access to one of these. Sorry, I have something in my throat. But there are also places where they take in donations, and public school teachers and nonprofits and artists can go there and get those items for free. And then they could also host events. So this is just examples of government waste. This is from Lincoln Center, taken from my Buy Nothing group on Facebook. So when they're cleaning out or deciding that they no longer want the outdoor furniture, that's a great place then to intervene and say, instead, you could direct them to those community reuse centers. This is outside an asylum seeker residence on the Upper West Side. When the asylum seeker residence closed down, that also generated a huge amount of waste. And so thinking proactively about what legislation is coming or changes, and then what type of interventions you need. And so the next steps are the organization sign-on letter, which I'm working on. So that's something I would love, if this is something that you would support, signing on and saying that the city needs to do a dedicated office of circularity. Thank you. I'm sorry about this, but thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I know she can share it. It should be her.
Anna, thank you so much. That was so incredible. Like I learned so much through that presentation, and everything that you're saying makes so much sense, and you're taking a very sort of like institutional approach to like fixing these huge problems that seem very doable to me, just, so I think this makes absolute sense. I was just reading about how like we started the composting in our city, and was it in the New York Times recently that actually what's happening is that only 5% of our food is actually getting composted, even though it's,
Even now, today.
yeah.
So that's a very low capture rate. That's what the 5% is. So if you're thinking about like it's 100 pounds of food scraps, only 5 pounds are actually ending up into the compost bin, and 95 pounds are ending up in the trash. And as a result, it's very expensive actually as a program on a per pound basis. So also part of this would be education about the importance of composting, the importance of recycling, and what's happening to it. And also from a financial perspective, why New Yorkers should participate in it.
Yeah, I didn't know about the $500 million that we spend to incinerate and then transport our trash. I mean, that's not so environmental to like truck our trash.
Yeah.
That slide of where the trash goes that SWAB has put out is a very useful one. Have you thought about legislation?
Yeah, so I think the easiest thing to do is to be working within government, and for there to be some sort of office of multiple people working on these issues. Legislation can come in, but I think that's a longer process and more difficult versus just changes in protocols or the creation of, like, for example, these community reuse centers, like materials for the arts, that doesn't require legislation. That could be done through legislation, but it could just be done through the mayor. So that's what I would hope to do. Legislation could come in for the hygiene items that I showed you, requiring those corporations to donate those hygiene items. And I worked on a bill that was introduced a few years ago, but didn't end up passing, requiring these corporations to donate these hygiene items. So like, yes, there's a place for legislation, and also it just takes longer and it's not necessarily going to pass. And so that's why I think having an office within the government is the way to go.
Which would also require legislation.
Not necessarily. It's not a department. It's like creating an entirely new department would, but the mayor creates offices all the time. You know, like Mayor Adams famously created the Rat Star office. And offices can come and go. You don't need legislation to do that. Especially if it lives in the mayor's office, or even within DSNY. DSNY does have some of these reuse programs, but historically they've been underfunded and subject to budget cuts whenever budget cuts have happened. And also I would say, like, that's not DSNY's priority. It could be, but right now their priority is waste removal, snow removal, and then waste containerization. That's what they're really focusing on. This could complement waste containerization, but it needs to be, it can't be an afterthought. And I think that unfortunately for a long time within Department of Sanitation, it's been an afterthought.
So the next presenter is going to talk about the Enhanced Producer Responsibility Act, which, as you surely know, has been moving is the wrong word, has been inching its way through the legislative process. And it doesn't cover some of the stuff you've talked about.
Yes.
If it's going to be, if any of the stuff you've talked about is going to be longer lasting, it can't be up to the whim of a favorable mayor who will be followed by a mayor who is not favorable.
Yes and no. Yeah. I think that materials for the arts has existed for almost 50 years. And so I think once you establish those community reuse centers in each borough, that's going to be very hard to undo. And I think that could be really key anchors for these programs.
I just want to, I know this is unusual for, I don't need a board member.
Speaks.
But I wanted to say, First of all, I was shocked at seeing brand new school-related supplies just being thrown out. That was really very surprising to me, and I'm sure, and it was no surprise Upper West Side. I think a lot of that kind of waste is coming from wealthier communities, but I'm not here to beat them up about that. It's just shocking that anything brand new would be thrown away. I do want to just comment on when you were talking about school lunch and the single-use, items. I'm old enough to remember when I was in elementary school, we had a kitchen that was fully staffed. These lunch meals were not, contracted in disposable containers. We had silverware, we had real plates, real trays, and real people serving us our meals. And there also was a man at the dishwasher. They would scrape off the plates and they put them in a huge dishwasher. So part of this is, we can say that it's a convenience, shift, but it's also just the way we think about how things should be done. And we could have more nutritious meals if we had people cooking them for real in the schools. We also could reduce some of this waste that you described. So, but it was just very, very, very telling what you saw, and I commend you for your presentation.
I think just the furniture removal, because we live in a rental community. So what ends up happening is every time you move, you have to get all new furniture because the specs and the build and the apartment layouts are all very different. So I feel like the furniture thing is such a, that would be no cost. It really is just advertising in terms of, we're gonna set up the norm that every Sunday at the end of when do most leases begin and end?
First of the month.
Yeah,
End of the month,
right?
yeah, beginning.
Yeah, end of the month, the Sunday before the end of the month, you leave it out. To me, that's like it's just a norm or a pattern, but it's like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's there's some small low lifts, easy things to do, and then there's much higher lifts, like the switching to reusables for a system of 1 million students, that's big deal. And that's a small tweak that could divert from landfills and incinerators and reduce our costs and also help build community and help people in need, if you're able to walk around and get some furniture that you want.
To that point though, there are already certain days of the week or a month, I think, at a building, I know our building can only put furniture out a certain day of the month. So it's already being done. And I would think sanitation would love the fact that people took some of that furniture before they had to get to it. But we put it out for sanitation to take. And I'm not sure would have to ask my super how many times a month that is, but at least a couple times a month you go outside and there's a pile of furniture. Or mattresses, which you don't really want to give away, but there's furniture out there. So that's already being done. It doesn't have to be a Sunday of every month. It's already going to the sidewalk.
So the question is not to reuse.
Well,
it isn't being circled, it's being dumped.
Right, it's just being dumped. So if you could say before sanitation comes, come grab your furniture.
Yeah, if people knew about it, even if it was a Facebook post to be like, hey,
Yeah, right now, the Department of Sanitation likes you to put out bulk furniture on your trash days, not on your recycling days. And so that's on the Upper West Side, we get trash service 3 times a week. One of them is the trash day and recycling day. So it could be that, there's 8 days of the month right now where you can put out furniture, twice a week. So it's not concentrated enough, I feel like, in order to create the culture that's necessary. And that's not saying you could take away options from New Yorkers, you could still put it out on those other days, but it's saying that if you want to, have a greater chance of it being reused, put it out at this date.
In the middle of your presentation, you said that you could use support on something, and that went by too quickly for me. What was it?
Oh, the organization sign-on letter. I'm going to be creating a sign-on letter for organizations if they also agree this is something the cities should put resources in, create. And I've been trying to create a budget potentially, and it would be hopefully around at least 4 full-time people. And
you're talking about the Office of Circularity.
Yeah, for the Office of Circularity, and I could share more information, and then also some initial grants for studies and Little Free Library and advertising if we were to move the do the furniture collection dates. So trying to create a lean budget and also justify the costs in terms of waste disposal, reduction costs, and recirculating items and the value of that, and the value that would come from increasing our composting and recycling rates also, because that does have the power to reduce the amount that we're spending on trash. So hopefully it could be at least like cost negative or cost neutral, if not negative.
Are you constructing such a letter?
Yes. Yeah.
Also sounds like, to me, maybe it's further down the road, but this is something like a ballot initiative that people vote on, creating such an office. So whether it comes through the city council or another area of legislation, it could be assembly bill, when you want to take it local. So I was thought, but it's a legislation. Ballot initiatives are voted on all the time. And I believe ballot initiatives would include the creation of an office within the office of the mayor. I don't know when we get to that point, but it's something to explore.
Thank you.
And say, yes, we want this. I think we just recently voted for a new office within the government of the city.
That was in June. Yeah.
What was it? Which office was it? It was something to do with human rights, I believe. But it's a new office. But you can have a ballot initiative for that, I'm pretty sure. Speak to your local council member.
There was an Office of Racial Equity that was in the last ballot initiatives. There were 4 items around it, but one of them was an office, which has not yet been created.
Okay, well, this is New York City, so but we start somewhere.
We'd be very interested in seeing that letter as, or that whatever the document is, so that we can consider, for us, it has to be related in some way to what this community board for, but the stuff you're talking about is happening here as well. So I hope when you move further along in producing such a document, share it with us, and I'll be, if I'm still chair of this committee, be very happy to bring it here and have the conversation continue.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you. It's interesting that you spoke just before we're going to hear a presentation on the Extended Producer Responsibility Act, because it does some of what you, but it's really not focused quite the way you have focused it.
It's related but different. Yeah. Also important.
That's one of the things in the area that you're talking about that I also think needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So, moving right along here, can we ask the presenters of Beyond Plastics? Come on.
Yeah, certainly. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Anna, for such a great lead-in. Can you hear me okay?
You've been here before, but you haven't been able to stay, and I hope I'm very pleased that you can now.
Yeah, no, really appreciate the opportunity. Just by way of introduction, Anna might be known as the trash walker, but I'm known as the trash talker amongst my friends. So I'm here representing Beyond Plastics, which is an organization, a nonprofit that was founded in 2019 with the ambitious goal of eliminating plastic pollution everywhere. And when we say that, we say we're focusing really on the pointless plastics, the things like what Anna talked about, the plastic that gets one use. It has a life of minutes that gets thrown in the trash. And public school cafeterias are the biggest plastic polluter in any public building in the country. So it's a huge problem. But I got involved because I think that it's a very misunderstood problem. And I am doing my part to try to get involved and enact some change to help address it. So tonight I will be talking to you about PREA, which is the Packaging Reduction Recycling Infrastructure Act. But I will go ahead and share my screen here.
Isn't it interesting how the face of the speaker always changes when they want to try and get the screen to share?
I'm very
There we go.
serious. Very serious.
Perplexed.
Okay. Yeah, and I think Harvey Epstein is a huge proponent of this type of legislation. He's now obviously in the city council, but he's written a lot about it. And, you know, our city is in a crisis of plastic production, but really the world is in a crisis of the overproduction, the unsustainable overproduction of plastic. And I think what most people don't realize when they eat their food out of plastic and their clothes, 80% of clothing has plastic in it, that it's made from fossil fuels. And in the US, it's almost all made from fracking. It's a very environmentally horrendous process to make plastic. And if it was a country, it would be the 5th largest greenhouse gas emitter. That's how polluting it is to make plastic. The other problem is that plastic is made, there are over 16,000 different chemicals in it, and most of those are unregulated. We know that 4,000 plus are toxic chemicals and are carcinogens, but we don't really regulate in our packaging, in the way we sell it, many of them. So it also makes plastics very hard to recycle. As a result, only 6%, less than 6% of all plastics are recycled in the US. And plastics have really, most of them have been developed in the last 20 to 25 years. This is a relatively new phenomenon of our consumer throwaway kind of culture. And again, the lack of reuse that we've all become so, you know, accustomed to with convenience of everything. But we have a pretty big problem on our hands. And as I mentioned, you know, less than 6% are being recycled. But if you think about plastic, it was really meant to be a durable material. So that's why they make baby seats, car seats, and things that need to last a long time. It really isn't a good material for single use. And there's so many different types of plastics that it's almost impossible to create a scalable way to recycle them. And the recycling process is also just like making plastic. It is a environmental disaster for the communities that are located in these near both the production and the recycling centers. It requires a ton of energy. It has lots of chemicals, and the byproducts that come as a result are inferior, and it costs more than just creating virgin plastic. So we're not going to recycle our way out of all the plastic that we're continuing to produce. And as a result, we are now, you know, seeing 15 million tons of plastic enter our oceans. 90% of the plastic that enters the ocean comes from city streets. So this is trash, this is litter. And, you know, we are doing 2 to 3 garbage trucks a minute of plastic going into the ocean. And this is accidentally being eaten by sea animals, getting into our food supply. There are 5 garbage patches that float around in the oceans. The biggest one, the Great Pacific, is twice the size of the state of Texas. This is a really unsustainable situation that we're in. And what kind of makes it even more difficult is that plastics don't break down, they break up into smaller pieces. And so the other thing that happens is the chemicals that are all in it separate. And so you've heard the term forever chemicals. When plastic is littered, not only does the plastic exist in smaller pieces, all those chemicals stick around forever as well in the environment, in our water, in the air, etc. But basically, they break down, you know, in pieces. The macroplastics are visible to the eye. They're about the size of, you know, like a eraser on the top of a pencil. Micro and nanoplastics are not visible to the eye. And this is where it gets a little scary because they can enter into the body and they can enter into the bloodstream. And so they've been found everywhere in every organ of the body. And there's not a place in the world that microplastics have not been found. So we are kind of stuck with a lot of this in the air we breathe, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the water we drink, et And so New York City, as Anna mentioned in her presentation, we spend $500 million on getting rid of our trash every year. The number I've seen is over 600 million. And plastics and packaging make up about 40% of our waste stream. And I should just also add that the spike in production of plastic was also driven in the last 20 years by all this additional packaging that we have and all these, single packaged cookies and things that bottled water, 1 million bottles, a minute are being sold in the world. And all of that trash has to go somewhere. So New York has a lot of trash. 40% of it is made up of plastics and packaging from things that we buy. And, more packaging means more garbage that gets carted around, and that's, bad for the environment, as was brought up in the last presentation as well from the truck emissions. And so we also have the unfortunate #1 status of having the most incinerators of any state in the nation. We have 10, and the incineration is the most expensive and polluting way to get rid of trash. And these incinerators are all located in environmental justice communities. So the whole life cycle of plastic is unfair and unequal damage to environmental justice communities. And those are communities that, as mentioned, are typically lower income and oftentimes of colored people and less fortunate. So the result that happens is there are many health implications that come from living in a community that has one of these incinerators. Higher rates of cancer, the air is so polluted, tons of, almost like an asthma epidemic, and then tons of fertility issues as well. So this is not the way we should be getting rid of our trash. But the good news is we do have a really powerful piece of legislation that has passed through the Senate 2 years in a row, and we believe has majority support in the Assembly to pass. It's called PREA, but it's sponsored by Senator Harkin and Assemblymember Glick, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So basically, if this bill passes, New York State will have the what I would say the gold standard that can be duplicated by other states of an EPR framework. So kind of the highlights are captured here. It takes a phased-in approach, but it does mandate that plastic packaging is reduced by 30% over the next 12 years. It also says the remaining packaging has to be recycled and reused at a 75% rate. So again, this is legislation kind of on the theme of, what we talked about, the reuse over time. Companies will start to pay per package a very small amount, but it will help offset that 600 million that, New York City is currently paying to take care of our trash. And most importantly, it eliminates 17 toxic chemicals that are currently not regulated and are very frequently in our packaging for food, etc. So just to, who does it apply to? It really is putting a lot of the onus on the bigger companies that are the plastic polluters. So if you're over 5 million in sales, or you have more than 2 tons of packaging, you need to adhere to this over time. It also has some mandates on secondary packaging, which is often unnecessary. I'm sure everyone's gotten a package from Amazon where the item is all packed in plastic, and then it has another layer on top of it that you don't even have any idea why that exists. But it looks to reduce that by 50% as well. And then it has some strong mandates to encourage recycling. The good news is it also saves us money. So there was a report done last year that says over 10 years, New York State will save $1.3 billion, with New York City really benefiting from the majority of that gain. So it's a win-win for taxpayers as well. There are some exemptions. So like I said, really targeted at the big polluters, but if you're a small business or a farmer, some medical products, et cetera, are excluded from this. There's a separate sister bill called the Bigger Better Bottle Bill that is also actively being discussed that covers the beverage containers. We do have a bottle bill, as we all know, in New York State. We are working to get a better one, which will increase the deposit from 5 cents to 10 cents and do a bunch of other things. But these are the exemptions to PREA. Here's a list of the toxic chemicals that are going to be, prohibited from being in packaging. So they include things like formaldehyde, lead, PFAS, forever chemicals that, have been known to cause cancer and to have a whole bunch of other health implications. And then it also provides a strong definition of recycling. So the idea of chemical recycling, which the plastics and fossil fuel industry has been selling, trying to green market since the 1980s and has never scaled and has never worked, will not be included in counting toward recycling. So it will, again, encourage companies to choose materials like cardboard or metal or glass that are recyclable, and to start shifting to them to adhere to the recycling requirements. So who's supporting the bill? It has overwhelming support from New York State residents. There are, hundreds of communities there. It's huge in the faith sector. I'm part of, my church is part of Laudato Si and the Catholic Church, which is all about protecting, God's creation, the earth. And I've talked to the Metro New York Catholic Climate Movement a lot. So there is support for this type of legislation across all different types of organizations. And so my ask, and on behalf of Beyond Plastics, is for Community Board 4 to pass a resolution of support for this bill. We've passed them with 15 other community boards in the city. There are 4 more that have passed it at the committee level, but are bringing it to a full board vote. So we would love Community Board 4 to join that group. And I'll pause there. I can bring up the resolution of support. I think it was mailed to you as well, but it looks like this. And then the ask would be to send it to the governor and to your state legislators.
You see this in the Dropbox?
I didn't see the resolution. I saw the rest of the presentation, but I might have just missed that.
Yeah, I can send it to you, and it is linked into the presentation as well here on that slide. But yeah.
We're going to open it to questions on this, and if I may take the audacity to ask you about the first question. I want to ask about the 2 kinds of plastics that are being recycled. That you used an example of a PET bottle. Would you talk about PET and high density polyethylene, number 1 and number 2, and how that fits into your scheme of stuff that is being recycled, although I don't know the percentages.
Yeah. So there are, you see numbers on all the many items that we use every day that makes you feel good, that recycling triangle. That was introduced by the plastics industry, the petrochemical industry back in the 1980s. The reality is, to your point, only number 1 and 2 can be there. There isn't an aftermarket. Maybe I'll phrase it differently for the other types. And this is because there are so many different chemicals and so many different flavors of plastic, right? You have the flimsy packaging that's like, you know, that's not hard. You have hard detergent bottles. You have, you know, all different kinds. And so only those with a number 1 or 2, sometimes a number 5 can be, but all the others, no, they're not. And so those would not count toward the recycling goal if they're being recycled with chemical recycling, which is how the most of them are.
Would you repeat, say the last thing you said in a different way? I thought that polyethylene terpylate and high density polyethylene were being recycled and reused as raw material for the remanufacture. Is that wrong?
No, that's true. The other stuff she was talking about, I think.
They are, but only like less than 6% of them.
And the rest of that goes to trash.
Correct.
So
most plastic goes to landfills, which again causes problems because the chemicals separate from it and become toxic. But
your idea is not to have plastics at all as containers. My own reaction when I see anything other than basically 1 or 2, I don't even trust polyethylene because it's not recycled all that much. When they package it in the other stuff, I get furious at the fact that I've purchased this plastic that isn't going to get recycled, but I wanted the product that was in it. So isn't there some way that we can legislate those other plastics as part of those legislation pieces out of the picture?
Well, I think overall the goal is to reduce plastic packaging in general. So, you know, by way of, you know, without mandating specifically which types, I mean, I will just say again, like, we're not going to recycle our way out of the unsustainable epidemic of the overproduction that we've, you know, come to, you know, live by. So we need to think about reuse. We need to think about alternatives that are natural and recyclable. Metal is the best. There's a very high rate of, and you can put any kind of metals together to recycle them. So.
Can I ask just a little more specificity on the 6%? I don't know that I understand it. Is it only 60% of all plastics get put into recycling for pickup? And then
No.
A very small portion of those are actually recyclable and reusable?
No, it's that of the ones that do get put into the trash, that's how much. And again, remember, a lot are going into the river and, you know, into yeah. So it's what is put in the trash. Of that 6%, less than 6% is recycled.
By recycled here, you mean remanufactured into other plastics?
Correct.
That are used. Yeah.
Fabric. My question is really from the business side. I don't see her now, but I work with manufacturers, and plastic is the most expensive form of packaging. So everybody wants to limit plastics in packaging. Anybody who's manufacturing does. So my question is that you say $5 million or more. These are only New York State companies that manufacture and package here, correct?
No, it's any company that would sell their product here.
So how would you go after, let's say, China factories, Vietnam factories? How would you go after all the, because they're the ones, we don't manufacture with very little here. So what's coming from them is what is packed in plastic. How would you get to them if it was packed in plastic? How would they pay this bill. But it's not made here, it's made elsewhere.
So it's like a tariff, I imagine, right? Like a.
Exactly. It's a small per item charge that,
How would
it's
you
like
know
pennies.
how would you audit these factories? How would you know these factories? How would you audit these factories? How would you do that? I don't under, I'm sorry, I'm just, from a practical
Yeah,
point
no,
of
no,
view.
no.
Figure that out.
It would create an office of, what is it called? There would be like a committee, if you will. I can find it as a follow-up for you, but it would create a board, if you will, that would be like overseeing this. I will take back the question. I mean, a lot of US companies do produce their products in China as well. So so that's something that they would, they would be responsible for.
How would you audit that? And I guess the other part is there's enforce it. And how about it, is there an incentive for people or manufacturers who do use recycled packaging and use recycle, like for instance, there are mills that sell recycled, they take these bottles and make recycled polyester, and we make fabric out of that. So would you incentivize them? Would you say, good job, here's some money, or to keep doing it, or is everything just a fee? Because there are factories who are trying to work with recycled product. Like you're talking about those bottles, we make fabric in China and Taiwan out of these bottles, but we don't get them from the States. They have it over there. It would be great if you can get the bottles that the other 94% and send those over to China. Then they would get recycled into fabric that you wear. But since we don't make a lot of that here, it goes into a garbage. It has to go to where it's being manufactured.
And Ann Sachs thinks so.
Yeah, but the quality of product that comes from recycling it degrades every time. So it's inferior, and it's more expensive than just making virgin plastic. So I come back to the fact that.
But those are plastic items, but they make, you make fabric out of this. We make, solution polyester is made from PET bottles. So, things that you wear, and it's not recycled again, but they take the bottles and, you could look at, sometimes you'll see an outdoor pillow that has a bottle on it that says, this fabric was made with 60 bottles, 60 water bottles. At least that's what we do. But so I guess the point is that there is good stuff made from this, but I'm just interested on the business side of it, like how you do that, how you enforce it.
Yeah, I'll follow up and see if I can get some more specifics on how it's going to be monitored, etc. But
thank you.
I'd love to see that follow up. Others?
Marty, what can we do about supporting the resolution?
Well, that resolution is, it's great, except that our state senators and assembly members all have written the bill. There's nothing for us to do. It's done. Both, Archer and,
Rosenthal, Linda Rosenthal. Yeah.
they're already on board. They sponsored the bill, so there's no one for us to write to. In the CB4, everybody's already on. They sponsored the bills. I can't remember who it was. It was Botcher and Kruger. Kruger and Botcher and Tony and Linda Rosenthal. We don't have anybody to write to.
The governor. I think that, this bill has gotten more industry lobbying than any bill that Senator Harcum and Assemblymember Glick have ever seen. And so the idea is to show, support. That's why there's, tons of faith-based organizations, other community boards are going on. I think it's, if it does get to the floor for a vote in the assembly and it passes, the next thing will be the governor, and it would be important for her to see how many community boards took the time to support it as well.
That's to be followed. I mean, if it does pass in these, if it becomes a bill, that goes to the governor, that's when we come in. I mean, the community, that's something we vote on for the community board to write a letter to the governor in support of the bills. But so far, until it gets completely through, but what we can't do now is write to senators and assemblymen because they're already covered in community board. But once it goes to the process of passing through the assembly and the Senate, we can, if we vote on it, write to the governor and request that she signed it into law. I think that's what you're asking. We want to, if it becomes a bill, we want her to sign it into law.
Right. Well, I think the other important thing is to send it to Speaker Carl Heastie, because he's not taken it to the floor for a vote, and him seeing constant momentum from different groups. I think that's important as well.
PC and Stewart Cousins need a letter from the community board supporting the bill at this stage. Well, that's actually, it's not there yet.
If you look at the list of people who are supporting it already, it's very impressive. And I think that could make an impact on some of the politicians who will be voting.
Yes.
So being able to say the community board for also supports it.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. Kristen, have you, are there any large manufacturers in New York State sponsoring this bill? I'm thinking of like the yogurt guy upstate, or I don't know any businesses at all on your list of people that support. So there's no business support whatsoever. I'm just curious because I don't notice any business.
There's over 300 companies that have signed it. I can.
Public uses more plastic than anybody in New York State. Like, so is Chobani on board?
No. But these companies are not going to be on board, and they're not going to do anything unless they're legislated to do so.
Well, maybe it's hard to put yogurt in a non-plastic container.
Of course not.
Wax.
Of course not. What say you? Should we, how many of you actually looked at the resolution? I have not.
How many of what?
Looked at this resolution more carefully enough to be able to talk about it now.
Well, we have to take a closer look at it. I'm not gonna.
So my suggestion is that for next month, we all take a careful look at this resolution, keeping Kristen's contact number close by so that we can ask her further questions. And bring it up in a discussion next month. Am I calling this in a useful way? Trying to be constructive?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think getting clarity around next steps, I'm in full support of a microplastic bill. I mean, some regulation around the plastics industry, because it's just not sustainable, how much we're putting out there and the rate that it actually decomposes, but also leaves the forever chemicals just out there. It's gonna have massive health ramifications for all of us, including our animal biodiversity, all of that. Anyway, so I'm in full support, and we need to regulate it in terms of, like, in the world, there's just too many different kinds, so we can't even recycle it. It's just to say, all right, we're gonna make plastic. Let's just make this kind because this one happens to be, recyclable or salvageable or what have you. But it's just right now, it's just all over the place. And I think putting some guardrails around it would definitely help. So I think it sounds like we're all in support, but clarity around next steps. Is it a letter to the speakers to say, we want to see this on the floor? Or because that's what I'm hearing.
She said, I think she's saying letters to EC and Cousin Stewards to bring it to the floor. And then but internally they need to get it passed in the assembly, by sponsors and co-sponsors. And then again, if it gets to both houses with their help,
Then passes, yeah.
Also write the
The
letter. to the
letter, so well, it's a
government,
two-pronged
like,
process for us in terms of, once it passes, then we'll write the letters to. But it sounds like we don't need to write letters to our legislators or local, because they're already they're the sponsors.
Yeah, I think it never hurts to remind them that you are in support of it. But yeah, the ask is to, this is the resolution that I have on the screen, is for the community board to pass this and send this to all the people on that other slide that were listed.
No, and I think we don't have a quorum, and I think the committee needs to, everybody needs to read it.
And I love the answer on the enforcement side too.
And have some more information about enforcement so that we can put that in the letter. Of course, whatever letter we write would praise those that have already supported it, and they'd be copied in the letter so that everybody on your list would basically be getting a copy of the letter.
Yeah.
Very good.
Great. Well, I will send a follow-up with, the links to this and a bit more information about the auditing kind of component of it and how it would be managed. But I, again, just want to say a sincere thank you for giving us the opportunity to present at the meeting tonight.
Just for your information, the way I'm reading the group is that while we want more information, we're predisposed to writing something that supports this bill. Whether it's exactly that resolution or not, I can't promise, but Kelka shows.
Correct.
Super.
Kristen, how's that?
That sounds great. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you too for your presentation. And we
Great.
appreciate your work. You're doing
Thank you.
important work. So we have a bunch of bills actually that we want to follow up on. I mean, this was totally not the extended producer responsibility bill, which is not yet even, and that's a whole other, it's a different discussion.
Well, it is an EPR bill, because it does require the producers to take some responsibility for the cost of getting rid of the packaging.
That's a good point. But it isn't the EPR bill that's somewhere stuck in the legislature. That's a different.
No. Well, this is, I wouldn't say this is stuck. This is moving. It's ready to go to the floor in the assembly. It's passed twice in the Senate. But it is to my knowledge, the most far along EPR bill that is being talked about in the state.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. I didn't realize that. Fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the bill number again? So we have the bill number once more.
I have the Senate number. It's 174. The Assembly number is 1749. I didn't.
1749 is the.
Yeah, and the Senate is 1464.
Thank you.
Yep.
What's next?
I think there's the next is old business.
I think we have to say goodbye and thank you.
We said, there she is. Oh, look, she turned into.
We thanked her a couple of times.
Okay, well, she was still there.
Well, thank
They're
you.
interesting for you, I guess, huh?
It's old business.
Thank you.
New business. Paul is heading on so we can get an elevator ride.
You will.
Just kidding. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Oh, you don't. Then usually it's in the Actually, I can't even.
So wait a minute. Are we adjourning?
I guess so, I mean, unless there's any new or old business. Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second, no.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. That was actually a informative meeting.
There is one item that I would like to put on a future meeting. I know we adjourned already, and I thought of something else I wanted to say.
Go on.
Something.
There's this brownfield issue, that brownfield, the pollution on 26th Street. There's a brownfield there that related is participating in the clean up of, so it can build on that property. We don't, as a group, know a whole lot about brownfields. And one of the things that I'd like to put on a future. Huh?
Where on
Chelsea,
26th?
Elliott Howard.
Are you talking about nitrogen now?
Yeah,
It's a nitro property, but it's not a Superfund site, it's a step below a Superfund site. They're called brownfields. And I think we need to be educated on that. I'd like to bring somebody, I don't have an idea who to ask. Maybe Janine can help me with this. Probably somebody from DEP to talk to us about brownfields. I think we need to know, it's in our neighborhood. We're gonna be asked to opine on it. I think we need to know a lot more about it.
That sounds good.
That's the answer I wanted. You are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.